Okay, imagine a child's brain is like a tiny, precious seed. It holds all the potential to become this huge, mighty tree. Well, in those first 5 years, caregivers are kind of like the master gardeners. They provide exactly the right conditions for that seed to sprout and really flourish. Today, we're going to dive into how that amazing process really unfolds.
So let me ask you this, just to kick things off. What if the most explosive, most critical period of brain development is already over, long before a child even figures out how to tie their own shoes? I mean, think about that. Because the science, it's totally clear. That's exactly when it happens.
And that leads us to what we can call the brain's magic window. It's this absolutely unparalleled period of opportunity. It's a time when the brain is literally wiring itself up for a whole lifetime of learning.
So here's the bottom line. The experiences a child has in these early years, they create either a super sturdy or a kind of fragile foundation for their entire life. And we're not just talking about learning the ABCs here. This is about building the entire architecture for their future thinking, feeling, and social skills.
So what's really going on inside that amazing little brain? Let's peel back the layers and look at the science that makes this time so incredibly powerful. The key idea here is something called plasticity. Basically, a baby's brain is like a sponge, just soaking up every single sight, sound, and interaction. It's uniquely ready to be shaped by its environment, which is exactly why this window is so critical. This incredible ability to change, well, it actually slows down as we get older.
And the growth? It is just staggering. Get ready for this number. By the time a child is just 3 years old, their brain is formed around 1,000 trillion connections. We call these synapses. Yeah, that's a quadrillion. That is the most connections they will ever have in their entire life. Wild, right?
Now, as they grow into their teenage years, that number gets cut roughly in half. What's going on? Well, the brain starts this process called pruning. It's kind of like a use it or lose it system. It strengthens the pathways that get used the most and just gets rid of the ones that don't. So those experiences in the first few years, they are literally telling the brain which connections are important enough to keep for the long haul.
This timeline just shows how fast it all happens. I mean, it starts with learning emotions just by watching a caregiver's face. Then, bam, the brain is furiously connecting sights and sounds and feelings. And all of that builds up to that peak of 1,000 trillion connections by age 3, which sets the stage for a really solid foundation by the time they turn 5.
So if the brain is the garden, who's tending to it? Well, that brings us right to the caregiver, the master gardener in our story. Their role is, and I can't stress this enough, absolutely crucial in nurturing all this development.
Okay, so how does a caregiver actually garden the brain? It pretty much comes down to 3 fundamental pillars. First, you've got to provide a nurturing, stable, and safe environment, one that's free from constant stress. Second, you engage in these rich back-and-forth interactions. And third, you make sure they have proper nutrition, which is literally the fuel for all that brain growth.
And hey, when we talk about interaction, quality is everything. Talking, reading books, telling stories, singing songs, these are all powerful brain builders. The more words a child hears before they're 2, the better it is for them in the long run. It is so important to remember that screen time is a passive substitute. It is just not the same as that direct, responsive connection with a loving caregiver.
You can even organize the physical space around them to support learning. The Montessori philosophy calls this a prepared environment. It's all about creating order and predictability, giving kids the freedom to choose what they want to do, and making toys and books easy to reach. This just naturally fosters independence and a love for exploring.
But it's not just about the environment. It's about what you do in it. And this is the fun part. Caregivers can use play as this incredible tool to build the specific skills that get a child ready for school and for life.
One of the most important skill sets is something called social emotional learning, or SEL. Just think of it as emotional intelligence. It's the ability to handle your feelings, understand other people, and make good choices. And as one researcher put it, schools are social places, and learning is a social process. Makes perfect sense, right? Having strong SEL skills leads directly to success in school. Children who understand their emotions better, well, they have better relationships with their friends and teachers, and that leads to higher grades and fewer problems in the classroom. They're just better equipped to handle the whole new, structured world of school.
Along with emotional skills, play is also fantastic for building technical ones, like spatial skills. This is all about being able to think about objects in 3D, how things fit together. It's a super critical skill, and research actually shows it's a key predictor of future success in science, technology, engineering, and math, what we call the STEM fields.
And you want to know the best part?
These skills are so teachable. You can build them with really simple activities, like playing with puzzles and blocks. Using spatial talk, words like over, under, next to, and through, is incredibly helpful. So is using your hands to gesture, to show how an object can turn or fit into a space. It's all about making this kind of thinking a part of everyday fun.
So after all this careful gardening, the nurturing, the interaction, the play, what's the result? Well, we get to see the journey from that tiny little seedling into a thriving success.
The result is a child with a rock-solid foundation. They're more resilient, they're more curious, and they walk into school not just ready to learn, but genuinely excited to learn. That right there is the power of a well-tended garden. So that leaves us with one final, really empowering thought. The first 5 years are a gift, a true magic window of opportunity. The real question is, how will you help the amazing brain in your life flourish?